Welcome into the Beat Sessions, your place for all things music. I'm your host, Mitchell Weary. Let's talk about this new record from Panda Bear entitled Sinister Grift. He released that on February 28th. This is the 7th solo studio outing for Noah Lennox and his follow-up to 2019's Buoys, or Boys, however you choose to say the word. It's a really good example of why people hate learning the English language. He also made a great collaboration with Sonic Boom back in 2022 entitled Reset. So if you want to look at Sinister Grift as album number 8, I'm not going to argue with you there about that. I will say, though, that Reset was the record for me, the one that finally pushed me to take the plunge and to explore the catalog of Panda Bear. And admittedly, it is because over the years, I have not been the biggest fan of Animal Collective. I've certainly grown to appreciate what they bring to the table. I have given their records more time, and they have grown on me. And certainly the influence that they've had, all the other bands that they have inspired in the last couple of decades since really blowing up in the mid-2000s. I have a lot of respect for the outfit. It's just not necessarily my cup of tea, and I think that's fair when you start to talk about music that kind of falls into that category of experimental noise. The two big factors for me with Animal Collective, I just always kind of felt like there was this childlike element to their sound that was really off-putting. Their sound is very chaotic too. And again, that's one of those things that to each their own. But I also had a ton of roommates over the span of that time when Strawberry Jam and Merriweather Post Pavilion came out, and those records were just on nonstop, especially Strawberry Jam. That's a record that was actually recorded here in Tucson. So I love that about it. I definitely appreciate the desert influence that you can feel on that record. And when that record dropped, everybody that I knew for the most part was just really thrilled to have something like that, such a big influential piece of art, be inspired by our beautiful surroundings. So Panda Bear is the guy that I like. The sound, the quality of Animal Collective that I always really loved was the pop influence. And I would argue that is Noah and his style and what he brings to the table. So I'm glad I made that move. I regret that it took so long, but better late than never. And I think that the exceptional thing about Noah and about the Panda Bear solo catalog is that you really do have a very signature style of psychedelic chamber pop. There's a handful of outfits out there that are just pushing that sound and a number of bands that are using that influence in their music. But you know when you're listening to Panda Bear, and you know when you're listening to Animal Collective as well too. And I think that his style is a big part of why that's happening. What I'm really loving about Sinister Grift is two big factors. For the most part, the first one that I want to talk about, his catalog is solo. I mean, even to the point where he's gone out on tour and live performances, he's been the only one on stage producing this music. I think it's really cool that Sinister Grift finds him forming a band, even if it is with his, Animal Collective bandmates. But this is the first album, first solo record that Panda Bear has put out where all of his Animal Collective bandmates are featured on it. I think that's really cool. Rivka Ravid, his new girlfriend from Spirit of the Beehive, is also working with him on this record. His daughter is on this record. She's on a song. I'm really excited to get into that track. Cindy Lee as well is on this record. It's really cool that he decided to just bring in a handful of collaborators that he knows and that he trusts and that he really appreciates. I think it's reflected in the quality of the music on this record. The other thing is he's about 46 years old, about 5 years older than I am right now. And this is a record that explores the perils of middle age. I feel like it's something that comes up fairly often on the channel, but I love his perspective. I love the idea of, bringing light to the party when you're trying to explore the darkness. And that's what he's doing on this record. He talks about his kids growing up. He talks about being divorced. I think it was a couple years ago that him and his wife separated, and now he's with Rivka, who, I have a soft spot for a very attractive bass player. I think Rivka is a very cool woman and a great artist. Spirit of the Beehive is a great band as well, if you're not familiar with them. But it's trying to find a way to move forward when all these things that have been a big part of your life have influenced your progression are now in the rearview mirror. Once your kids grow up, I mean, you're still a parent, but you're not necessarily playing the same role when your kids are adults than you were when they were kids. And so there's a lot of from a lyrical standpoint, there's a lot of coping with that progress, that idea of finding a way forward. And the title Sinister Grift, I love the verbiage there, and I love what he has to say about it. He says, "Sinister grift is the lie that we tell ourselves that if we're just careful enough or if we're good people, we can somehow avoid suffering or regrets, mistakes, hurting ourselves or people. This very inevitable part of living." Excuse me. "I like contrast. I feel like the light is lighter when it's put against darkness, or things are funnier when they're addressing something really dark." That's me too. Like when things are uncomfortable, when things can get, really sinister and dark, sometimes I joke, and oftentimes inappropriate. Sometimes I feel bad about the things I say, but that's just my coping mechanism. It's just how I've chosen and how I've developed, my ability to deal with grief, to deal with sadness, and all the bad stuff in the world. I'll find my place here. Here we go. But it really just started because I liked the title, and I liked how it sounded and how it looked on paper and all these stuff. The album cover is great as well too, but I liked those thoughts. The idea of, I think a lot of people find themselves, especially at this stage in life, in a sort of conundrum. This idea of lying to ourselves to make us feel better instead of just facing life head on and dealing with those challenges and dealing with where we're at. The plaza that I work at has a number of restaurants, and we do live music. And one of the things that's kind of tripped me out is the number of young people that I work with. They're all fantastic. I really enjoy managing all of these kids. But that's exactly it. The majority of them are kids. They're half my age, and it's just kind of a trip. It's kind of a trip having the same energy that they do. I've never been married. I don't have kids. So in a lot of ways, I feel very young at heart. But I also have to acknowledge that A, I'm their boss. But B, that, yeah, like I'm 40 years old. I'm not at this stage in life anymore where I'm really looking to party or to club as much as I love providing that atmosphere for other people, for younger people, and teach their own. I'm not criticizing anybody who wants to go out and have a good time at any frequency. But I just think that at this stage in the game, and this album, I think, is a reflection of that idea that we all change and we all grow and we all find ourselves in a different space in life at this age. And so it's just fascinating to watch and to listen to Noah explore that. He lyrically, that's one of the things that I loved about getting into Panda Bear. And as busy as I am trying to listen to new music for this channel and being at work often, it's tough to try to find time to get all the bands that I enjoy listening to onto the turntable, and just finding that time to enjoy it. So Panda Bear is someone that I'm continuing to get into, continuing to enjoy. But the lyrics, like I really appreciate his perspective and what he brings to the table, and especially being able to backtrack and watch that progression, reading about records and reading about what inspired his sentimentality on those particular projects. I think he's an incredibly insightful guy. And as I said before, I'm stoked that I finally gave the guy a chance. And if you haven't, or if you haven't had a chance to listen to him, I definitely would maybe even do what I've done for the most part. Is I would say that starting off with Sinister Grift, or maybe starting off with Reset. If you wanted to push backward, great. If you want to just start at the beginning and find yourself here, that's not a bad way to approach it either. But this album kicks off with the song Praise. It's got this drum roll that opens up this jaunty, thumping rock track with a light Animal Collective flavor. I mean, just right out the gate, you can feel that sound that is still there. And that's something that he's talked about too, is he's tried, I think, in a lot of ways to make his solo work sound different and sound unique in its own right versus Animal Collective. But the fact that those influences now, for obvious reasons, are coming together and you can hear them, I think that, I think working with both of those elements, everything that's inspired that band is not necessarily a bad thing from time to time in his solo work. It's got this classic sound. And what I mean by that is like classic rock and roll. Like, think of rock and roll from the 50s, think of doo-wop, think of, even moving into the 60s, chamber pop, the psychedelia that, frankly, the Beach Boys are a massive influence, I feel like. The idea of just that sunny summer day vibe and the idea of escapism, I really think is at the core in a lot of ways of his sound, of his style. And I love that. I love that the music is built to take you away, but then the lyrics ground you. And I think that's a brilliant dynamic and one of my favorite things about this record and about what he does. But I think the opener is fantastic, and reading some of these lyrics here too, I think it's something in the tone. You won't get on the phone with me. I'm holding like a stone. I'm holding on to you. And this is a song that was inspired by, him trying to get a hold of his son and him not picking up the phone. And he's built on that. Obviously, he's got a great little quote here. I'll go ahead and read this, but it says, "It kind of started as a song thinking about my son. The anecdote about him not picking up his phone is very real. But then it became a song more about fatherhood than a song about parenthood. There's the fire driving the relationship where it feels like no matter what the kid does, he's not calling you back. If he's maybe being a little difficult or acting up, there's the sense that there's an underlying force, that unbreakable thing that drives the relationship." And so continue reading just some of these lyrics. "My heart, it bends before it breaks." I absolutely love that line. "Only want to give it to you. I'm going to give you, you're going to take. All the love is going through you." Brilliant way to open up this record. Really just a big fan of that perspective and the way that this album is led off in that regard. Anywhere But Here is your second track. His daughter is showing up, and I love that she's working with him on this record. He talks about, this is super funny. He jokes about how she still wanted to be paid. He's like, "Hey, you want to do this?" She's like, "Yeah, as long as as long as you're willing to cut me a check." But yeah, I think that she sounds fantastic. This song, it's going to slow the tempo. You get this really thick bass element, mellow drums, and arpeggiated guitar. Lots of space that's working in this song. And I love the way that you listen to the individual instruments and there's a lot of space in the notes that are being played there. But it's the way that they come together and they blend beautifully that creates this full sound that I think is just so well done on this track. I'm almost positive that his daughter is speaking in Portuguese on this record. He lives in Lisbon now. Part of this record was recorded in Baltimore as well. We were talking about Bartees Strange and that area of the country and that scene. So like that we're rolling with that. But his daughter just brings a beautiful element to this record, and I really appreciate that he brought her aboard for that. 50 Milligrams is your third track. Picks up the pace with this rollicking drum element, slide guitar, and light but thick thumping bass. Playful synths that are like, honestly, they're like capillary waves on repeat. There's just like this pulsating, rippling, and I love I almost kind of think of just like a record being, stuck, like a record skipping. It's got that moment and then it resets. It's a cool element, bit psychedelic, and it builds the momentum around 2 minutes and 30 seconds. For 30 seconds, there's this intense half a minute or so in the track, and then it mellows out again. But 50 Milligrams, more lyrics here. "It's not what I want, it's what I got. Keeping an eye on all the things I got. Given some thought, it's not what you thought. You were the only, now it's gone. It's gone, it's gone, it's gone." And continues on, I don't like the quiet we've ended up on. I could get all my wishes granted file by file. Engines running, I can feel the miles. Look to blame, naming the name, telling myself all that I'm not. End of the day, wish it would stay. into the evening, now it's dawn. Just really love the reflections in this particular track. I'm gonna read a handful more of lyrics, but "Ends Meet" is your fourth track. I really like the lyrics of this song too. Really just love all of the different global influences that are carrying this track. Just a really just mellow, breezy island feel. Again, that idea of escapism really is inspiring the music on this particular song. The rhythm is really unique. I love the wavy synths and the way that the Noah's vocal element is going to replace the synths when that is introduced. Great hook in the chorus though. What else can I do? I really love when he sings that line. It's just there's just such a complex layering of emotions that are in that line when he sings it, and it's just the intonation in his voice and obviously the context of the song as well. It's it got these dissonant synths that they're almost like very very light industrial inspired synths, but they really fit in well. And this love these lyrics. And it's entering the area like an ooze. You're giving in for what? It's taken over you. Don't look up. Punching you in your gut, excuse me. It's going to take good care of you. You can't choose. Tangled in the rough. And when you come a groveling, all shook up, it won't be good enough. And when it is my time, dig it all, and I'll dig it again. And when my motor stalls, get the engines, start it again. And if it is that time, dig it all, and I would dig it again. So there's a great line in here about the aging that he's feeling in his knees, but I love what else can I do? What else can I do? The way that this song closes out really is one of my favorites on this record. Just As Well is your fifth song. Jaunty, almost bluesy rock with bright Panda-esque synths. This is just that signature sound that he has developed. Like I said, there's a lot of pop music out there, but you know when you're listening to Panda Bear's pop sound. The synths have a balance with these staccato guitars, sustained vocal hook that I really appreciated. Vocals have some really cool effects too. I like the way that he's playing around with that. Your sixth song, and I love the way the B-side is kind of this transition into a space that's a little more dark than the A side. And I think that the title of this track, Fairy Lady, is very appropriate. I feel like for the back half of this record, Noah has set us up with the fairy lady, and she's like, take my hand. I will lead you into the darkness and bring you back into the light. It's really well done. I just very, very thoughtful in my opinion. Light, upbeat acoustic reggae with prominent bass elements, simple woodblock percussion. I enjoyed that element of it. Resonant, ripply synths that are working there. The chorus fills out with more texture, and I love the horns that work in on this particular song. And again, you're getting a lot of, excuse me, a lot of global influence, Latin influences with jazz that are there. I think are the biggest, and I really enjoyed that. Venom's In is your your seventh track. Reverb, electric guitar. It's more of an indie rock feel. I feel like this is one of the tracks that's a little more grounded in just more of a rock and roll sound. But there is a big Beach Boys feel on this particular track. Simple bass that walks on the turn. I like the simplicity of the riff, and then when it hits the turn, it's got this funky little groove that it finds. Love the progression and the movement of the melody. It's going to intensify, and then the pullback is really effective because of that intensity that's built. Left in the Cold. Now this is where this album really goes into some incredible space. And I think that tracks 8 and 9, your ninth track, Elegy for Noah Lou, I mean, really maybe doing some of the coolest stuff that he's done in his solo career. I think both of these songs are exceptional, especially the vocal performances. Incredible. I mean, I really think the melodies that he's working with are just top tier for what he's done throughout his career. Ambient, reverb-driven, arpeggiated guitar to open up Left in the Cold. Got minimal percussions, driven by a big vocal, and a lack of form. I really like the way that he chose to work with these two tracks. by just letting that space just do its thing, and allowing his vocal to navigate this kind of ethereal, heavenly sort of feel. You get these swirling textures that move in and out throughout the song. Love the sliding that you can hear on the guitar. It's, it's one of those things that, you listen to people play guitar, and some people would call it sloppy. Oftentimes you'll hear it edited out, but I really like that you can hear the fingers sliding when there's the changing of the chords, and I just appreciate the rawness of that. Your ninth track, Elegy for Noah Lu, is your penultimate track. And again, just a beautiful vocal performance from him. Light pulsating textures and acoustic guitar. The volume, the production is going to come up as this song comes to life. Really like that introduction, and more ambience and ethereal textures. Lots of different sound effects that are working in and out of this track, but those all just really do a fine job of bringing this thing to life. Dark and sinister bass element around 5 minutes as this thing closes. It's really a unique track, and I'll read a few more lyrics on here because I think that this song is exceptional. Never knew my place, looking for some love and grace, swept in the swell of the storm, looking for an embrace that's warm. For you, I look for you, only for you. When the season's gone, looking for land to land on. When the day has broke, looking for words never spoke. For you, I look for you, only you. And we'll finish this song actually. Reading the look in your eye, looking for something that's mine. Seeking as travelers do, looking but long in the tooth. For you, I look for you, only for you. Simple but powerful, and I really think the music does a fine job of amplifying what he is trying to convey there in that track. And then Defense is your final song. Staccato electric riff followed by arpeggiated electric guitar. I really like that lead that comes in after the rhythm opens. Just a groovy rhythm with big drums that are going to hit to drive this thing. I like that he kind of pulls us out of this dark spot that he takes us into for a couple of tracks. I think that's what makes this final track so special. Solo is really unique on the song, and just a fine way to close this album out. That song features Cindy Lee, and I'm really impressed by this record. The more I get into Panda Bear, the more I the more I really just admire the man and what he's doing musically, whether it's his solo work, and even with Animal Collective these days, they're definitely in my perspective, in my line of sight more than they were before. I really would encourage all of you to check out this record. It's definitely one of my favorites so far this year. It's been a solid start to the year. There have been some really incredible records that have dropped to start off 2025. I'm going to give this thing an 8.6 out of 10. Can't wait to go to the record store, pick this wax up. We're going to vinyl please it. And I hope you enjoyed this record. I hope you find this review helpful as well. Please like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel, do all the things to help me blow this project up in 2025. And stay tuned throughout the week for more album reviews. We will see you next time on the Beat Sessions.